It's heavy.
Me too. Like this is... Handle with care, don't fall. Are you talking about the box or us?
So it looks like Creality isn't playing catch-up anymore. Actually, it looks like they're the ones setting the standard again. So once upon a time, I had like 10 Ender 3 V2 Creality machines. It was how I ran my print farm, and there were a couple of other ones sprinkled in there, like some Anycubics and an Ender 3 Max, and it was fine. Well, once Bambu came on the scene, especially with their entry-level A series of printers, it didn't make sense to use these Creality machines anymore. See, the Bambus brought value at a price point that was just super hard to beat, along with better print quality and speed. And since then, everybody's been playing catch-up. Everybody has a Bambu copy of the P1S or the X series, and it's because they came in and just kind of cleaned up. Let me tell you something about the Creality K2 though. This machine that we're going to look at today is not a copy. It's like the next iteration. And really, it delivers at a time where Bambu hasn't released their next machine yet. So, as it turns out, Bambu is going to be the one playing catch-up, while Creality's already scooped up a bunch of sales, which is exactly what all the other companies were doing when Bambu came on the scene the last couple of years. And that's not even considering all the third-party access drama that Bambu's had going on this past week. So today we're going to unbox the Creality K2. We're going to look at the assembly process as well as the unboxing. We're going to set the thing up and we're going to run a print or two. Let's see if it's really as good as everybody else is saying it is. Here we go. This sucker's a big box. The team lift recommendation on the outside's more of a necessity now than ever, but that's because we're weak boys. However, once we are able to wrangle this puppy into position, it's time. Let's start breaking into it.
You got it. You got it.
Come on, Corey. Let's go.
Through there?
This is the con. Oh, okay. I don't like this.
Corey's the unbox guy. We're at Paul's house.
Yep.
Because Corey is unboxing this printer that is Corey's.
Wait, what did you just say?
All right, Corey, unbox your printer.
No, let me tell you the truth. Let me share, okay? I've been waiting 2.5 months for this printer. I've had so many conversations with Creality about the $1,500 that I just randomly sent to them for no reason. I finally got it. I'm very excited. And if Corey claims this printer, I will break him. Okay, let's do this.
Like usual, we're met with a lot of foam and plastic, and we find a lot of the accessories right on the top. This includes things like stickers, instructions, spool holder, as well as the most impressive toolkit that I've ever seen come with a printer stock. Good job, Creality. From there, we find some half spools of filament before revealing the CFS. It's like an AMS or an ACE, but the letters are different. However, this is the point where we found ourselves at a little bit of an impasse. We didn't know how to get this thing out of the box. And it wasn't like, oh, this thing's too heavy to lift. It was more like, what's even holding it in? And it was at this point that we realized this box was much smarter than we were. So the way that you break into this thing is you fold these little tabs at the bottom, and that allows the box to slide up over the machine, giving you ample access to work on everything. Again, good job, Creality. And from there, it was a matter of removing a lot of plastic and foam and tape until we could find the printer a suitable workspace for us to continue unboxing and setting it up. Well, one more team lift later and we had the machine on the least confident work surface that I've ever seen. The printer does share this poor design choice that Bambu made as well, in that it doesn't have built-in handles on top of it, so deducted points for sure. They can't all be that Qidi Plus 4, am I right? But the machine was moved without incident, the remaining packaging was taken off without fuss. We pressed on.
You want to get this out? I can pull, maybe?
That's a good
There has to be a handle to the thing, right?
Dude, the Qidi has handles
I
on
don't
it.
think there is. That's where I almost suggested.
Yeah,
Here,
I'm
this looks
still
pretty good.
worried about that.
Oh, you did it?
Sorry.
Could you imagine if that was heavy?
I know, Corey's printer.
It's adorable.
Oh, it does have a little bit of a pressure though. Check that out.
It was time to see what it was going to take to get the CFS from inside of the printer outside of the printer. Similar to Bambu, the CFS is mounted inside of the machine and shipped that way, mounted with a bracket and secured to prevent any damage to the machine or the CFS. So, with the incredibly impressive toolkit tools in Paul's hand, Corey could now direct him how best to proceed. Corey's the unbox guy, Paul's the assistant. I don't make the rules. So in an attempt to keep it brief, this multicolor box is similar to all the other multicolor boxes that you've seen come out.
I've seen AMSs and I have my Ace Pro. This is just even holding it is so much better. Like, it is heavy and it
quality.
feels good.
It's got a screen too, which is cool.
That is very cool.
It holds 4 spools, it automatically loads and unloads filament, and importantly, it speaks to the printer and allows for multicolor printing. Up to 16 colors in this case if you chain 4 of them together. Good, that's nothing new there, but we do need to talk about some specific improvements that Creality has implemented with their multicolor box. For starters, there's this thing that I'm a little bit torn on. It's the spool buffer holder thing. It's meant to help your spools from jumping when they get too low, which is totally a problem with the Bambu AMS. The filament gets low on the spool, there's not enough weight to hold it in its cradle, and the feeder motor can cause the spool to jump, and then you may have some issues. I like the idea of what they're going for here. It's a little buffer to hold the spool down, because sometimes they jump as they get low, right?
Believe me, I know about that. Those cardboard rolls.
Why wouldn't they make it a roller thing? It just drags on the spool. I feel like that's a good idea executed lazily on a machine that wasn't executed lazily.
Yeah.
This spring-loaded buffer guide thing just kind of holds constant light pressure on top of the spool, allowing it to get as light as it needs to be to deposit all of its filament without the spool jumping because of the feeder motor pulling on it. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about constant pressure being on the spool, like that extra drag that it's going to incur all the time. And surely if you're using cardboard spools inside of this little unit here, this is going to create a lot more dust than it normally would, since there's always that drag happening on that outer lip. But time will tell. Maybe it'll be worth the trade-off because there will be a lot more reliability in this multicolor box than there is in, say, the AMS. Another improvement that's specific to this machine that I really like is these little cutouts on the bottom that expose the PTFE tubing. This is the single smartest thing that they could have added aside from a filament dryer, which this machine does not have. No, but these cutouts provide a huge solution to a problem that all of these little multicolor boxes have. What do you do when your filament breaks inside of the AMS? For me, it means I'm taking the whole thing apart so I can have access to the blockage, and I've had to do that plenty of times. You got him? In some cases, you can remove the blockage by using a piece of filament and kind of feeding it in there, but in most cases, at least in my experience, you're taking the thing apart. And Paul's reported similar experiences using the ACE from Anycubic. He's had to take his apart several times because filament snaps inside these lines, or it gets caught in there as it breaks off. You gotta take the thing apart, you gotta clear the blockage. So, this little access cutout that Creality has implemented in their CFS is huge. If you have one of these multicolor units and have had to take it apart because of blockages, you know it as well as I do. This was a good move. Otherwise, the thing's pretty straightforward. It's a sealed box so it can protect your filaments that are hygroscopic. There's RFID readers inside of there that can read Creality RFID spools. And that means you can just load your filament, it'll suck it in, all the appropriate settings will be applied, and you're just ready to go. So you remember a second ago when I was all like, and surely if you're using cardboard spools inside of this little unit here, this is gonna create a lot more dust than it normally would? I'm pretty sure that happened and got us to the point that we're at now. So take that piece off.
Ready?
Go for it.
Like that.
Okay.
Do you have a magnet? We just need to release these. I don't actually need this out. All right, cool. All right, let's see. Close up.
Yeah. I was wondering about this as well. Like, that is actually a function that's meant to do a thing. Here's the story. Paul was printing using his CFS, a big multicolor print. He was enjoying his life. Suddenly the filament ran out, and he was away from the machine. So, he enlisted his wife to help. Now, one thing you need to know about Paul's wife is Paul married up. She's no dummy, especially because she prefers her Bambu machine instead of all this Creality noise. It's the same reason why my wife's super smart, because she also prefers all my Bambu machines instead of any of the other ones I have in this room. But that said, Paul's wife went down to reinsert the filament so the print could resume without any incident. But for some reason, the feeder was blocked and she was unable to reinsert that filament. So this meant we had to disassemble the CFS. Now I know what you're saying, because literal seconds ago you heard me say this. This little access cutout that Creality has implemented in their CFS is huge. Yes, these cutouts in the bottom make it easier to remove filament that's stuck in these tubes. That's great. I still stand by that. Excellent design choice. This unfortunately was something much different than broken filament. From what we could tell from our disassembly of the multicolor unit here, was the reason everything was blocked up and we couldn't feed any filament inside of the machine was because of a buildup of dust or particulate from inside the machine. Somehow it got lodged into the feeder and it was blocking anything else from coming in. And the more unsatisfying part of this is we took it apart and we still weren't even sure what caused it to be blocked up. There was no piece of filament lodged in there. There was no obvious issue with the filament path. There wasn't even a clump of dust that we saw initially that needed removed. It simply fell out as we were taking the thing apart. So I'm not certain that the spring-loaded filament spool holder buffer thing caused the particulate that got jammed in the feeder, but I have my suspicions. Oh well, let's get back to setting this thing up and finally print something. Alright, back to the printer. We're briefly distracted by these 3 vents on the back, and there's kind of a lot going on. So 2 of them house the filters, or the cavities for the filters, where you can put activated carbon or different filters if you'd like to filter out all the harmful particulate and VOCs that some plastics can create. The little venti guy in the middle of those 2 filter spots, though, is one of the chamber fans. Now this chamber fan's a pretty big deal because it allows for the chamber temperature to remain consistent or just generally to be controlled. Now a lot of machines will do this. They have a chamber fan to control the temperature, so when you're printing something that's warp prone like ABS or ASA, you can keep the heat inside of the chamber without it getting too hot because the fan can regulate the temperature. Well, this fan employs a strategy that's exceptionally important. Not only can you control the temperature in terms of heat, you can also control the heat by evacuating it from the chamber. And this means something pretty important for those of us that have had these enclosed machines before. You can print PLA with the door closed. You like that? So typically, if you print PLA inside of an enclosed machine, that chamber heat builds up too much, and it can creep up into the nozzle. So your melt zone, where the PLA is controlling where the melt occurs, well, it doesn't really have control anymore because there's so much heat. And the heat can creep up beyond the melt zone, and it'll just jam up in the extruder. And this does a simple thing by solving that problem completely. It just runs the fan to cool the chamber. So the chamber heat doesn't get out of control, you don't get creep into the tool head, you don't get clogged. Why is nobody else doing this? Why is this so revolutionary? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh, you're so good at this, Corey.
Just pops off there. Oh boy. Sick.
Over-engineered, not this guy.
So beyond that, there's some zip ties that need removed before we can press on any further. They have bright yellow tags to ensure that we take them off before we try turning the machine on. This is a thing we at Keo Prints like to refer to as dummy proofing. We need this kind of thing. We appreciate this kind of thing. Moving on is the next step where we remove the fasteners holding the print bed in place. These are here to ensure the print bed is secure during transit and doesn't cause any damage to the bed or the machine, and they're also marked with these bright yellow tags to make sure you don't miss any of them and try and turn the machine on. Again, it's dummy proofing. We like dummy proofing. Finally, we move the gantry around by hand just to make sure we haven't missed anything obvious that would stop anything from moving properly. Then, we take the camera cover off in preparation of the machine's first startup. First, we need to finish the assembly. Now the assembly process isn't all that involved because most of these machines come mostly assembled these days. But things like the screen and the spool holder and that sort of stuff still needs put on. So Paul set off to read the instructions for some reason to make sure we did everything right. This is Corey's printer after all, and Paul's a really good friend. And as such, he wanted to make sure Corey's experience using the machine was going to go as smoothly as possible.
Oh, we could watch a video.
I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that.
I love watching videos.
I like watching videos, but okay, I shouldn't say that. This is fine, because you can choose videos.
Yeah.
If it's just a video,
Oh, that
get
infuriates me.
out of here with that, dude. So we skipped the install of the spool holder because we have this magic box that magically feeds and unfeeds the filament whenever we need. So looking at the screen first, we see some instructions printed directly on the back of it. This is an excellent idea because not everybody is going to open the instructions. And of course, we didn't need to, but if we were wondering how to put the screen on, the instructions are right there. This is good. We actually had a lot of similar experiences when we were opening up the Qidi Plus 4 recently. Now with this ribbon cable pulled through the mounting slot and bracket, the screen can be secured using the provided fasteners. The mounting bracket's nice because it pivots up and down. So if you're one of those people that's getting a handful of these machines and have them mounted in racks at different heights or something like that, it allows you to point the screen how best it's going to serve you for quick reference. Sick. So what is it, AMS time? CSP, ESPN?
CFS.
Are you a top AMS person, bottom AMS
I'm
person?
going to be a top. I will tell you this. I am worried about this getting to the location it will live.
Finally, with the top glass installed, the machine's ready to hold up that CFS unit. And before plugging that piece in, we need to make sure the filament buffer is installed on the back of the machine. This filament buffer already features 4 inputs, which allows you to chain up to 4 of the CFS units together and print with 16 colors. Sure would be a bummer if you had to buy this upgrade to allow you to chain more of your multicolor units together. As for power, the CFS is passive, like we find with the AMS. It doesn't get power from the wall, like the ACE, it just gets the power from being plugged into the machine. There's a cable that runs from the machine to the CFS, and then another cable that runs from the CFS to the filament buffer. In the event that you want to add more CFSs, you take your cable from the machine to the CFS, output of the CFS to another CFS, into the buffer at the end. It took me forever to wrap my head around this because Bambu does it slightly differently, but it's the same idea. But now is the time. With the printer set up, everything plugged in, PTFE tubes where they're meant to be, let's turn on the power switch. As we get ready to turn this thing on for the first time, let's cover some of the specs. This printer boasts a pretty huge volume, 350 by 350 by 350. It's got loads of lighting inside of the chamber to help illuminate the workpiece. And of course, we spoke about temperature management being a big thing with this printer. Well, the fan on the back helps with that, but we've also got temperature management in the form of 2 huge part cooling fans on the side of the chamber. We've got the dedicated chamber heater, which aids in reaching the hotter temperatures when you're printing those warp-prone materials. There's also a camera in the corner that does its own monitoring and allows you to check on your prints mobily, as well as do things like time lapses. There are 2 lead screws that are in charge of lifting the bed up and down, and they're aided by 4 linear rails to keep everything lined up. Each of those lead screws has their own independent motor, which allows for tilting where necessary or if there's any corrections needed. We find a USB port near the side, but up front, which makes for easy access. And near that by the spool holder is another feature that's kind of going unnoticed. The side of the machine has an RFID sensor, which I think was just a massive oversight when Bambu was putting RFID sensors in their AMS. If we're talking about abrasives or flexibles or any of the filaments that you can't load in through an AMS or a multicolor unit like this, you lose out on the key functionality of RFID spools. That's because you have to feed it from the external spool holder. Well, you know what? This isn't an issue because on the K2, if you feed from the external spool holder, there's an RFID sensor where the filament's going to be. That means you can still just load your filament and let the machine take care of the rest of the settings. That's good attention to detail, and that's really iterating beyond what Bambu's put on the market. As for the tool head, it's got a direct drive dual gear extruder and all the whole suite of sensors and accelerometer, gyro stuff that you find in any tool head these days at this level of machine. Sensors that allow for bed leveling, filament runout, vibration compensation, all that stuff is there, but there's one thing that's interesting about this tool head that I haven't seen yet. There's a little dedicated camera on the tool head that allows, with the other sensors, for the tool head to better calibrate things like pressure advance and flow rate. The nozzle is a hardened steel nozzle that heats all the way up to 350 degrees. That combined with the hotbed that can print all the way up to 120 degrees Celsius allows for a lot of flexibility in what kind of materials you can run through this machine and print with straight out of the box. What's PTFE stand for?
Pliable tacos every Friday.
PTFE.
Oh, Friday Eve.
So that'd be like soft shell tacos, also known as pliable tacos.
Prison, treason, felony, exploration.
Are you ready? We're flipping on the power.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
It's broken. Ah, I knew this.
Oh, the lighting,
Corey,
dude.
come and look at this.
Well, there's a light back here.
Why do we wake up?
Please wake up. Corey.
Did you plug it in?
Take the sticker off. That's probably it.
It must be that sticker.
Oh, he turned it on. Good job, Corey.
See, you gotta wait.
Yep. This is Corey's printer.
Got it.
I don't want to. He's just like,
Paul's printer.
it's really rude.
Please do not do this. Did you see it? What was happening?
Classic Corey.
That would have been a long backtrack.
See, it's mine. It likes me.
With the machine powered on, we can set it up now. And that goes about as you would expect. Select your language, connect to the Wi-Fi if you want to go that route, do all those things. This is actually a lot easier to do when you have the ribbon cable on the back of the screen plugged in properly, so there's a pro tip for you. At this point, the machine runs through the things that we should have done to get us to this point. So things like removing fasteners from the bed and zip ties from the gantry. These are all things that should have been done. It shows you on the screen, did you do this? And after you connect to your network, the next step is going to be doing some self-calibration. These calibrations are semi-standard now, and I'm all about it. Initially, it runs through a bit of a system check by heating up the hot end, heating up the bed, making sure there aren't any issues with any of the fans for those components. And after it confirms that all of those systems have survived shipping intact, it runs through its auto bed leveling and input shaping to allow you to print as crispy as possible. Some of these self-checks are so thorough that you might think your machine's broken. They got a special printer. We loaded up the CFS with the included filament so we could get to printing. Now, I'm not certain that every machine is going to come with all of these half rolls of Hyper PLA, or if these Hyper PLA spools we got was from Creality fixing the mess up that they had with Paul. You can check out the video, we dive into that a little bit further. But we've got 4 different colors of Creality Hyper PLA. This blue Hyper PLA in particular looks super good. Similar to how you load an AMS or an ACE, the CFS is just the same. Insert the filament into the feeder tube, let the feeder motors take it from there. And with that, we're finally set. We can begin our first print. Paul's had a few weeks to really get to know the machine and run a handful of prints through it. And so far the results have been great. But for our first print, we went with one of the preloaded Creality prints. This is a 3-color print, so we could stretch the legs on the CFS a little bit, and it's one that Creality loaded up, so therefore they sliced it and tuned it. It should be a pretty good file. And being that it's a Creality file on a Creality machine, and we're using Creality Hyper PLA, this is the best chance we could give this machine to print flawlessly. The machine starts the print by doing a purge procedure, as well as the regular calibrations that you would see maybe a Bambu or something do before the print starts. The first layer goes down slowly and nice and clean, before ramping up the speed for the remainder of the print. And I gotta tell you, it's exciting finally seeing a machine this big, moving this fast, performing this well. And from what I could tell, taking it off the machine, this print looks good.
Check this video. I don't even know how to crack a plate this big. I definitely chipped that.
Nah.
It's definitely chipped.
No way, dude.
I definitely chipped that.
No way.
Is there a screen on that one? Nope.
No way.
Welcome to first day.
Wow, yeah, you scratched it good.
Yeah, cool.
How? Nice.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
The edges are clean and nice and straight. The color changes appear to be pretty seamless. The only real critique that I could point to is this top surface being a little bit rough. So it just looks like maybe you need to tune the flow rate a tiny bit to get that nice and smooth. But all in all, that's kind of splitting hairs. This is a great piece. I would say it's as good or better than what we expect from all the other top leading Core XY enclosed machines at this price point. Here are some of the other prints that Paul's burned through in the last week or so since the machine's arrival. The results have been great. So this machine does seem like a super solid base, but there have been some issues. And really, I wasn't expecting the level of refinement from Creality that I've seen with this machine. When I had all my under 3 V2s in my print farm, I was regularly downing a machine or two at a time because it was either waiting on parts or I had to fix it. But I bought cheap machines, as such, I had to deal with the maintenance. Paul has the under 3 V3, and he has printed on it hard for like over a year, and he swears by it. And he also hasn't had any issues, which I just can't wrap my head around. He hasn't had any issues until recently, that is. But with the K2, it's going to take a little bit of time before we can tell if this thing's going to be a maintenance nightmare or not. My money is on it's not going to be a maintenance nightmare, just based on what I've seen. The only issue that's presented since we put the machine together and started printing on it was the PTFE tube back here popping off of the filament buffer. I know, total bummer. Unusable machine. How could Creality let this happen, right? There was a clip missing that I think we were supposed to install. The collar that locks the tube in was missing its retaining clip. That's all. The other small issue I found was removing the faceplate. So this cable chain's in the way if the tool head is moved in the parked position and you can't remove the faceplate. So what that means is you have to pull the tool head towards you and then take the faceplate off because that allows the chain to move out of the way. But I guess if you're removing the faceplate to work on the tool head, you need the tool head closer to you and not at the back of the machine anyway. I guess what I'm saying is this machine's as good as everybody's saying it is, and I was blown away. We will have to revisit it in the future, of course, but as it stands right now, having opened a handful of machines and had my fair share of experience with different brands, this one's good. It's way better than what I remember from Creality, so that's super optimistic. Good job, Creality. Bye.